What is the pain points of the people that you are going to engage with? What are they frustrated with? How do you help them? For those of you who do not know Pablo, right? Pablo is a dear friend of mine. And Pablo actually was a helper in getting this podcast started. What was it, 2 years ago, Pablo? 2.5 years ago now?
By helper, you mean I like bludgeoned you over
Produce,
the head with the need to have a
bludgeon. Yes, you
podcast
did.
for about a
You
year until you
you
finally
chased me
did
down
it.
the street,
And I
sent me
and I
nasty
appreciate the
messages. Yeah.
opportunity. This
Yeah.
this podcast has brought a
Yeah.
lot of value to my life by being a
Awesome, man.
producer, by listening to it, by meeting the folks that are
Right.
part of this community. So I'm very
Yeah.
grateful to be here.
So Pablo's been on the show before. He's produced the show. His team helped produce the show on the back end. So Pablo has been instrumental in this show. He is a inventor himself, right? Goes to events, likes to execute at events. And Pablo has a new venture with Vendaroo. And, we've had a lot of different conversations about that venture, what he's doing, the way he's doing it. And oddly enough, they went to a trade show and he was the one in charge as the chief evangelist, right? He's the chief evangelist officer at Vendaroo. Pablo, just briefly give everybody, I describe you guys as like an AI solution for hiring for property managers. Is that correct? It's like a,
No, it's
not
super
hiring
incorrect.
for,
Super incorrect.
sorry, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Hit it.
So in property management, the biggest pain point in property management is maintenance, right? Like me as a real estate investor, the reason I don't manage my own properties is because I don't want like a phone call at 3 a.m. in the morning that somebody's toilet broke.
Yep.
And it's the same for property managers. Now with what's the new breed of AI, agentic AI, you're able to essentially like manage 80 to 85% of all maintenance issues.
Yeah,
Can
that
be
whole
handled
workflow, right?
through AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be handled
That's
through
awesome.
AI so that these property managers have like quality of life back, right? They're like out of this like forever firefight of tasks. And it's just kind of, I was telling you, and you said it was douchey, but like, we're just kind of like a front runner in this like Silicon Valley use case of AI solving real world problems right now. And it's a super exciting thing to be a part of.
That's awesome, man. So I think just for setting stage for everybody, they go to NARPM, right? And this is the trade show. This is the conference that they went to. Pablo and I had some discussions prior. He had some plans. I think I gave some value and contributed to a little bit of like strategy, approach, idea. And then he went and executed. He totally crushed it. He has some data to bring back. I think long story short was that you guys basically doubled your business at one conference, which is just absolutely wild. And you weren't a small business to begin with. It's not like some, rinky dink startup. I mean, it's an established, full throttle, well-run business. So pretty remarkable. So we're going to run through that today. We will kind of recreate our strategy discussion and what him and I discussed, right? We will then go into a breakdown of execution and results. And then we're going to go into prepping kind of a conversation on what's next, Pablo. You have another trade show coming up, another event, and we're going to kind of kick some ideas around that.
This space is very trade show heavy, right? Like it's traditional America business development, right? So there's just like a lot of like some companies spend nothing on marketing budget and just go to trade shows every single, every other week. While we have this like really interesting mix of really high level performance marketing. And now that I've come into the mix, they all think I'm an event professional for whatever reason. And I've taken over the event program and we've just gotten way more tactical on the shows that we go to, in no small part because of the effect that this podcast and this community has had on my life of just like understanding what's worth it and what isn't. So NARPM is the big National Association of Residential Property Managers. They have two big shows a year. One is called Broker Owner, which is essentially like saying CEO and founder of property management company. And then the other one is NARPM Nationals, where it's like, this first one that we just went to is literally just like 680 of our ideal buyers in one room.
All right. So let's start prior. You're going to the show. You had like 60 days before you were getting there. You're actually at my house. We were doing some podcasting, some talking, and let's just kind of recreate like what you were kind of asking me and then what we kind of unraveled there in terms of strategy.
The number one takeaway that I've gotten from my exposure to this community is the idea that your trade show has to tell a story. At the time, I had been evangelizing this idea that we put out the firefight, right? Like we no longer do need to be like in task mode. You can like AI can put out the firefight and you can now be in strategy mode. But as we were getting closer to the show, I was given this big breakout room, and we'll talk about that and on the execution side of it, why we got this like special perk. But we were also starting to transition our messaging from this idea of like, hey, let us just take this off your plates, to this really clear positioning around AI is now ready to be your last hire when it comes to maintenance.
Yeah.
So as I was
Yeah.
telling you this, you were like, hey, I think that you should gamify some kind of experience, where you are getting people to vote on like how ready this
Yeah.
thing is for prime time. And that's when you started giving me the carnival idea.
I use like I'm from New Jersey, so I use the boardwalk concept. But I think, yeah, so what you're talking about is this idea of like, what is the story that you want to tell? And when you're going to a trade show, at least to me, when we work with our customers, not everybody wants to do it. We don't do it in every booth. We don't do it at every event or trade show booth that we design. But I love the question. I asked the question. We've built some of the best trade show booths that way and designed some of the best because it is, what is the story that you want to tell? Because I think once you know what that story is, whether it's a problem you solve, a value proposition, whatever it may be, whether it's just a marketing line, it's a really good marketing line, explains who you are. Once you know that, immediately you explain to me what is the story you want to tell. And I immediately went into, okay, well, once I know that, now I can do everything. Now we can talk about everything. So my immediate brain, just in this scenario, there's a lot of things that you can go to, right? You can go to design, you can go to gamification, engagements, you can go to swag giveaways, you can go to hosting things outside, but you now have a foundation. So my immediate brain went to, well, you have to show people this. You can't just say it. Like you can't just say what you said and put it up on a billboard. You could, but what if you proof concepted it? Right. And I came up with the idea and I used the game where you shoot the water out of the water gun and the horses race across the thing. Right. I was like, well, what if you had 4 things that people voted and you gamified it that way? And that was the initial concept of where we started. Cause I think that's fun. It's a visual. And then that visual and game gets people to read the message and soak the message in.
100%. So that's like kind of where we
So how did you execute it?
Well, they gave me this breakout room 5 weeks away, right? So like it wasn't going to be close enough to do execution.
Yeah.
So we ended up hiring, we found some software that would allow us to like display something like that. And the story that we ended up telling was, we had signs that said, make AI your last maintenance hire. And then we had these like agents. When people took these demos and tried them, the question was, oh, so first of all, our giveaway was Meta Ray-Ban sunglasses, right? Like I kind of I went down the rabbit hole of like how cool these things have become. And like, I feel like kind of like they're the next great hardware product. But at the end of the day, it also fed this narrative of like, hey, come see the future, right? We developed this engagement around, play with the agents, test the agents for a chance to win these Meta Ray-Bans. And then when they voted, we preconditioned the survey to say the AI has like 4 different personas. One that talks to owners, one that talks to vendors, one that talks to residents, one that talks to like the company itself. And we preconditioned the survey to say, if you were hiring for this position and the agent that you just interacted walked in the door at this skill set and told you they never wanted to take a day off and they would work 24/7, would you rate this A, an above average, you're like one of your best hires ever, B, an above average candidate, C, an average candidate, D, less than average, right? So like that was the engagement. We just had a screen that was showing that. And we ended up with this awesome proprietary data and a billboard saying that like 76% of property managers had consider our AI agents A-level talent. 18% consider it B-level talent, 6% consider it C-level talent, and nobody rated it D or below. So that ended up being the big narrative coming out
Tells
of
the story.
Yeah, it
tells the story. It's engagement. You're getting people to see it, which I love. Pablo, talk a little bit about prior, the way you approach this event. Because I think the idea that, we shot the shit about and we came up with was cool, but there was so much more that went into this, right? There's so much more. So talk about the partnerships with the show to reduce your cost. Talk about the AI pavilion, the Vendaroo pavilion, the way you brought in partners. And I view this as you and I have always talked about, like, I love big trade show business. I love people that want to come in and spend, whatever. It doesn't matter. I want to build big, elaborate things and do cool stuff. But I love the scrappiness too. I love that scrappiness, that guerrilla marketing, that creativity that I think event people need to have. And I feel like that's what you did really well here with partnerships, working the show, and sort of navigating your space. So talk to everybody a little bit about that, because I think there's some value there for them.
Yeah, thanks, man. You know me, man. I have this formula of like content co-creation to meet the right people, to then get them together at some point online, to then get them together in person, right? And like how that drives value. And basically, I launched a podcast in the space about 6 months ago called the Property Management Frame Breakers Podcast, right? This idea that the industry, the frame is breaking in the industry and things are all changing, right? So it's like about like who's doing things differently and how AI is going to affect all this stuff. That allowed me to develop these relationships, right? And two core relationships here was one with NARPM themselves, who I was fortunate enough to be the keynote speaker at Broker Owner last year. So NARPM themselves had actually approached me about helping them market their designations. Once Venderu brought me on board, I basically approached NARPM and I said, hey, like I know that my price point was too high when I first pitched you this whole idea, but now that I'm with Venderu, we can do this thing and it can just be a Venderu sponsorship, right? So my only ask in providing this value was, which is basically interviewing their constituents and the people that have designations and stuff like that, was that they give me some like space kind of like adjacent to the trade show hall that I could conduct these interviews and run an activation in. So that led to like an absolute advantage. This was a trade show that had two main halls, and at the entrance of each hall were two breakout rooms on either side of the entrance. And I was going to have one full breakout room to myself, 2,400 square foot. That idea came from how much you talk about this idea that sponsorships are like a suggestion, right? Like I knew that I could approach this organization saying, I want to be a sponsor, but I don't want to pay you $25,000 so that I can put like my logo on your lanyard. I want to do this work that's worth $25,000 in order to have this space that is going to be for you. And we're going to do something special. So that's the first thing that gave us a huge advantage. The second thing that gave us a giant advantage was, as you know, I'm a category design nerd and I will always want to evangelize the category, right? Like I know that in these like times of disruption, I want to evangelize AI even more so. I want to be known for like the leaders in AI in the space. So about 3 months ago, I met the keynote speaker that speaks about AI at one of the past trade shows, and I decided we had to be buddies, right? So we ended up creating this AI alliance. We created this like online, a virtual summit about AI, and that set it up really nicely for that. When we got this space, now I could run the interviews that I was going to do for NARPM. I could have our own stuff, but I could brand this thing the AI Pavilion, and I could bring all the other companies in the space and this expert in the space to validate it all and evangelize this thing as like, hey, everybody go check out the latest on AI, to a space where our allies had a presence, but we dominated. It just kind of set up this like big environment. And again, to me, it's the formula that I've done over and over again. It's if you can create a very like clear point of view and a narrative that you're telling through content co-creation, you're going to be able to pull in the allies that you're going to need then to activate and like make 1 + 1 = 11 once you show up live to a space. And that's what, that was like the guerrilla stuff.
When I shared the image, did that work? I felt like it worked. I didn't know I could tell. I feel like it shared screen. Okay, cool. Glad I nailed that. Yeah. So I think, look, I think those pieces of how you got there, it helped reduce cost. It helped give you relevance. I think there's a lot of good nuggets there for people when they're talking to shows to get creative, to think outside the box. I know that Cody and I did this recently with Exhibitor Live, right?
That's right.
We did this recently with Exhibitor Live, and we just personally don't feel like the spend is worth it to exhibit and go all out and go in there. But we feel like being there is important. We feel like teaching classes is important. We feel like running the podcast is important. I feel like the CTSM program is important, right? So it's like dissecting those things and then contacting the show, contacting people and saying, look, how can we make this work, right? What sponsorships are available? Do you have an idea of what a sponsorship? I think associations are more than open to that at this point in time, to adjusting and saying, well, yeah, we want you here. We want your involvement. How can we get it? So getting creative, I think sometimes takes the company to come in that sense.
It's less friction. If you have a media brand like you have with EventMarketing Redefined, right? And I have with Property Management Framebreakers, approaching the association about their educational programs and saying, I want to highlight the people that are part of their education programs. Let me run the podcast at a trade show. So far, I'm like 5 for 5 with that. Right.
Yeah,
and getting preferential space as opposed to like having to have some kind of like sponsorship where I'm on a lanyard.
All right. If anybody, any questions as we're going, just drop them in the Q&A, bottom of your screen. Can be anything. If you want to talk about how to craft that kind of message that we're talking about in the beginning, if you have any questions about how Pablo worked with the association, anything like that, fire it in there. Anything for me, fire it at me. No problem. Pablo, let's talk a little bit. Let's start with the results that you got and then kind of go backwards, right? Because I think the results are amazing and definitely something to be shared because it can tie into what you spent, time and energy at the show. So let's talk results. Give us, like, if you were talking to your CEO and you just got back and he or she was like, what's the deal? Hit me with it. What did we do? What's going on? What's happened? Where's my money? Right?
Yeah.
What's the results?
So I don't want to put out there's some stuff I can't share, but what I can
Sure.
tell
Give
you
us as
is
much
that
as you can.
we measure the size of people we serve as doors under management, right? Like how many these property managers, like our average property manager has 200 doors that they're like, that's a property that they manage. We walked in there with X amount of doors under management. And on one day, we more than doubled our doors under management. We ended up like 2.5ing the amount of doors
Okay.
under management we have, right? So that's what
So
you mean by like company doubled in size. Numbers I can give you precisely, right?
hold
There
on,
was,
just on that before you keep going. Let's just stay
yeah,
right on that because I think this to me is important because this is when I'm talking to a customer, Cody, myself, when we're working with somebody. So you're 2x on doors under management. So that doesn't mean that you doubled the amount of property managers you worked with. It essentially could mean that you've landed a property management company or somebody that has way more doors than somebody else, right? So I talk about this with people all the time. Who are the whales in the room that you want to go see? Who are the people that you need to get in front of? It's not an everybody game. It's not the claw in the machine where you're trying to get the iPhone out, right? Like it's like you got to know exactly who the big whales are and essentially how you get to them, how you draw them in. Because I think if you can do it properly, this is what ends up happening. You don't double the business by your volume, you double the business by the quality of the engagement and the people and the discussions that you're having. So I think that's just good clarity for me, which is you're looking for doors under management. And whether that's done through 5 property managers or 30 property managers, there's a difference.
100%.
Okay, cool.
100%.
Good.
Our
I'll make sure I'm on that.
metric, and that is like the big home run result that happens, right? Like our metric
Yep.
that we went in there thinking was, hey,
Yep.
we know that there's going to be around like 650, 680 owners of property management companies in here, right? Like total, right? Like some of them come double, right? So we know there's going to be 680 decision makers in the room. We wanted to prove that we could give demos and book demos for at least 10% of that room. All right. So what we ended up doing is we on site, and again, I went in there knowing we've talked about this a lot. Like if you can get a demo on site, better. If not, you want to leave with demo scheduled, right?
Yep.
So we were able to give 37 demos on site. 22 of those demos closed on site. We had 51 demos booked at the show for after the conference. And, so we ended up with 88 demos. So well more than 10% of the room scheduled a demo at the conference or after the conference.
So you said 27 of 32 was that?
37. We had 37 demos on site and 51 demos booked at the show for after, and 22 closed on
22
the
of
spot.
37.
So 22 of 37 closed on the spot.
So 2 things that I love about tracking this, right, on both pieces that I think we should hit on a little bit here is 1, you're getting to my heart when you're talking about 51 booked for after. I love that because I talk about that all the time. I say, why are you not tracking and trying to book meetings at the meeting for afterwards? I think that's huge, right? Like you have these conversations and discussions, book them right then and there, right? Get stuff booked fast, speed to lead, whatever you want to call it. And I think it's not important until you make it important. Everybody acts like they want to speed up, the leads, I want to get in touch with them, but I think it's not important until you make it important, until you make it a KPI, right? 100%. So I would love, report back to me, okay? 51 booked, what happens with those 51? Because the 22 of 37 is impressive and great for at the show. But now if you can go 25 of 51 on that close after, man, what a successful show.
I'm pretty sure we're going to beat that.
Like, I love that,
our Slack channel cash register, it has been ringing nonstop. So
that's awesome. That's awesome,
dude, it's been epic. Like we went from this show to like our strategic offsite in Toronto with like the leadership team of Vendaroo. I walked into a standing ovation, right? Like, all right, those are the results. Let's get to how we got there, right? I very deliberately followed the event success framework that we co-developed at EventMarketing Congress last year, right? Like I made a point to do this so that we could have this show. So
I'm glad this playbook is being used. It's fantastic.
Dude, I've been using it since it was like half baked, bro.
Cody's excited. She won't say it. She's on mute, but she's excited that you're saying that. Yeah.
So I immediately thought, okay, first things first, stakeholder conversations. That's when the idea of, are we booking demos? Are we trying to do demos on site? What are we trying to do? I pulled in the product guys. The product guys were like, oh, I want to be there because I want to be able to like validate a couple of things.
Yes.
So the idea of getting people to interact with the product, not just through a demo environment, but interact in a way to get feedback was one of the things that my stakeholders wanted. Booking demos on site was one of the things that we wanted. And then like being able to book demos, calling out this idea of like 10% of the room. Let's get after 10% of the room, have a very clear goal. Those were the conversations that led to the goals and the metrics, right? So you're
aligned in terms of what everybody's trying to accomplish at the show. Like nobody's confused.
Yes.
Smart.
Nobody's confused.
Yeah.
And something you talk about all the time, I have a seat at the table, right? I'm a partner in the company.
Yeah. It's big. It's huge.
I came in there just like, hey guys, like this is it, right? So
Yeah.
so then pre-event planning actions, you talk about the whales, right? I'm a big believer. I call the whales the super consumers, right? Like who are the folks that are going to like spend an extraordinary amount on you and tell everybody that they love you? We did a little bit of digging. We realized that 8 of our clients are going to be at this show. I mailed 8 of these clients a pair of Meta Ray-Ban sunglasses with a personal note that said, you saw the future and you bet on us. So I want you to
Yeah.
have the glasses of the future. Before you give this to your teenage kid and have them worship you forever,
Yeah.
do me a favor, text me so that you can put these things on and play with the agent before you get there. So like my goal was to have people in the room that knew and loved us, that were super familiar with the latest release, so that
Yeah.
once they interacted with other people, that word of mouth would spread. And that was
Yeah. I got it.
that was an activation there. We were getting posts online. People are like, oh my God, I got these glasses. We got user generated videos of people like asking the AI a question, and that did really well. We also have, like I said, we have a high level performance marketing team. We took the list from the show, and a week before the show, we started running ads specifically like enriched to that list of them seeing come to the AI pavilion, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
going to NARPM, the number one thing you need to know about is
AI
AI, come
pavilion.
to the AI pavilion,
Yeah.
right? So we started running those ads. I also, another piece of advice I took from you, as soon as they told me I had that room, and I flew out to Colorado and I looked at it to make sure that like
Yeah.
what we need to do. I shot some content on site so that like these ads were contextual to the place that you're going to be at. We were going to do that already. That's get butts in the seats, right? As we like to call it. And of course, Fibonacci sequence, bro. Right? Like went to ChatGPT and I'm like, hey, I got this event coming up. I need to do a Fibonacci
Doug loves
sequence.
it. Yeah.
These are the things.
Yeah.
These are the things that we need. Like I prompted the whole thing. I'm like, our narrative is this: we're trying to take people from believing that AI is a software to believing it's their last hire in maintenance. And we have this AI pavilion. I told ChatGPT everything. Write me up a Fibonacci sequence. Go. Right.
Done.
So that was the pre-event marketing activity. At the event, we had this 2,400 square foot room. We bought a 20 by 20 circular structure that we called the AI Pavilion, that we co-branded with the other people in the AI Alliance, right?
Yeah.
We put quotes on the walls of it from like Satya Nadella and Tim Cook and the founder of our company and the founder of the other AI Alliance companies and a couple of our clients, right? So we made it almost like a museum experience around it. And that had a couple of screens. So that was kind of like when you walked in, you just saw this big structure and you're like, whoa, what is this? Right? Like, and you wanted to go to it. On the way to the structure, we set up our engagement. So since we are personifying this idea of AI, we created these like humanoid cardboard cutouts of like the vendor. So we're vendor-roo, right?
Yes.
So everything's a roo.
Yep.
So we have an owner-roo, a PM-roo, a vendor-roo, and then a receptionist, right? And and then each of them are like lining the entrance with like a quote saying, hey, welcome to the AI Pavilion, enter for a chance to whatever, blah, 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 blah. We have a big sign that says AI should be your last maintenance hire. And then all along the way, we had the cutouts pointing at the thing where you could come demo it. And when you come demo it, it was one of these like plastic things where there's a TV here and an iPad here. And as soon as you walk up to the iPad, we created a Snapchat filter that you see the logo is kind of like a kangaroo with like a VR headset on, right?
Yeah.
So it puts like the VR headset and the ears on you. And we're just like, hey, we just want to show you that this is you in the machine. You're going to train your AI to be you. And then that's where you do the demo. And people got to engage and ask it questions. And then like we were just taking people one by one to do each demo for each different thing. And then they voted for the, like A, B, C, or D. Nancy says, how did we gamify it? Nancy, we
I
just
was gonna say,
yeah.
let's jump to a question here. Cause that's,
Yeah,
that's a good question. I'll read it so that we have, it says, this is from Nancy. It says, can you speak a little bit more about how you customize a game for the booth? We looked into having something designed for an event last year and it was insanely cost and time prohibitive. Before Pablo answers how, Nancy, I would say, it's definitely, there are some games that are very expensive. There's some big custom build outs. I also think there's a lot of ways to cheat it, right? There's a lot of ways to cut corners and do it a little differently, which I think is how Pablo did it. I also think that some companies are easier to create engagement games like this for than others are. I've seen the costs of spending $40,000, $50,000 to have a game built for yourself, right? We built one for a client of ours with made up superheroes that they made up on their own that went with their brand and theme. We've done that stuff. It's expensive, you're right. But there's a lot of companies that In particular, we work with Captello, Pop Shop, just to name a few, and others, where they have pre-made games that allow you to make customizations. So it's a little bit different. And I think those are always the first line of exploration, in my opinion, rather than going straight to a custom game, which is like, okay, what are we trying to say? What are we trying to do? Can we make it fit into this box that's a pre-customized game, essentially?
100% right, man. Like, we did not have the time, we did not have the budget, so we just went with one of those, right?
Yeah.
We had a QR code that you would hit, you would then get to vote. And then the vote,
Yeah.
then in the background, it was just like a web layer that reported the thing, and it was just projected on a 70-inch television on trusses.
Yeah,
And
so pretty simple.
I'm trying to share a picture in the chat. Let me see if you can see this. That is, you see kind of like the TV and the can I share my screen?
Yeah, just share. Hold on, I'll give it to you. Hold on. Oh, you're requesting. You beat me to it. You're requesting to share.
I'm a professional doer of
Oh, I know.
Okay, no. All right. So if you see here, right, like you see we had these, like, this is the iPad's the engagement, the TV is the thing where like you get to mess with it. And these are like our personified robots in the background, the Onaru and the PMRU and all that stuff. So people would just come up and they would see it, they could play with it based on like a QR code that you can then text with your phone. And we had a script going to it where, you know, it wasn't showing it live, but it was showing things that had been going on, so you could see it. And then when you wanted to vote, you just went up to one of those iPads and you voted, right? So it's really easy.
Yeah.
Behind these screens, we set up, this was before everything was set up, but behind these screens, we set up a couple of high tops, and that's where we did our demos. So when people really want to just get a demo, they would just go behind the curtain and do it. Other things that we did, right? So that was the engagement. Other things that we did that worked really well was, so we had the ads running. We also, during the time of, we did like a geofence around the convention center and throttled it with the same ads, right? Like with similar ads of like, go to the AI pavilion. And we spent $8,000 on Rosie, the AI photo booth. So it looks like the Rosie from the Jetsons is like a remote control photo booth that was like roaming the hallway, and people would like see it, engage with it. They would take a quiz to be like, who's your perfect AI, whatever, take a picture. And then if you wanted to, it could text you the picture, but if you wanted to print out of the picture, you had to go to the AI pavilion to get it. So Rosie was a showstopper. $8,000 was a huge spend, but there was one couple, you talk about whales. There was one couple that came into the AI pavilion. They were overwhelmed. They left, they engaged with Rosie. They then came back to pick up their picture. Our head of sales talked to them, closed them on the spot, 2,200 doors. Right?
Amazing.
Right. So
amazing.
Yeah. Again, back to me obnoxiously talking about category design a lot. Like, one of the things I really believe in is that there is some events that I'm going to go 10x at, right? If you are at the heart of where your customer is, you know, my event budget is like 100 grand for the year. I spent 40 on this one because I knew that this was the heart of the customer and who we wanted to do. And by doing it, I know that we showed up as way bigger and we punched way above our weight because our people are there. Right. Yeah. So I purposefully took budget from other events and I injected it into this event. I'm going to have a much smaller thumbprint at the next 3 or 4 events. I'm going to do different things. Right. But like Rosie, for example, was like a thing where I was just like, I told the team, I'm like, guys, you know, if we're already going to be spending a bunch here, if we don't spend this extra 8K is like the word of mouth thing that's going to work. And that worked. Right. So like Rosie worked. We also had a booth out in the trade show hall, which I'm sorry for those suckers. But that was also just a win a pair of Ray-Ban Meta glasses, engage with them here, but you got to go to the AI pavilion to vote. Right. So we had this like perfect flow going from our booth to the AI pavilion. And when you came into the AI pavilion, then, you know, we had this like perfect experience that was telling a story around our things being human and being a job, you know, being a job to be done, not a software.
Yeah.
And
you know what I think so like a really important thing that I'm hearing from you say that I think it's, you know, for everybody listening is I think a bit of the reason why you had success is because at Vendaroo, you are solving a problem for your customer, right? You're hitting a pain point. You're solving a problem. So I think about that couple that's got 2,200 doors and they come into the experience and they see and they engage, right? And then they're like, oh, this could really help us, right? Like you start to see that problem being solved, right, for them. So I just urge event marketers, and I know they're going to shows like, what is that for your company? Yeah. What is the problem that your company solves? What is the pain points of the people that you are going to engage with? What are they frustrated with? How do you help them? And then essentially build your message, build your gamification, build your experience that you're giving them, around telling that story. You can't not tell that story and just expect people to know, because they're not going to know. You got to be all in, slide chips on the table, and do it. You can go to the show with a normal branded booth and do your dinners and things like that. I'm not saying that it won't work. I know people have success. But for me, Pablo, you're saying I would go all in. I would slide my chips. I would say, okay, what do these customers want? What do I do for them? Problem that I solve, pain points they have, and I'm going to create a story and go all in on that piece.
And
Let's answer.
you can de-risk the all-in by having created content about this over the last 4 to 5 months with the people that you want to be there.
Yep, for sure.
Right.
Let's take another question from Gina. I love questions. So, when trying to schedule a demo at a show, what are your recommendations when the rep for that customer is not at the show? How do you manage that scheduling piece? Gina, I'm sure Cody will pop in on the chat. She loves this process type stuff and getting creative, but I would, like me, again, I'm a CEO, so I struggle with the details and things, but for me, if you're going to a show, my thought would be, and again, this is just an executive's thought on this for me, is just get the meeting booked. I don't care. Right? Mm-hmm. Like if you have someone that wants to have a meeting, a potential customer, a prospect, a current customer, they have an issue, they want to talk further about your product, service, whatever it may be. To me, the more booked meetings on the calendar, in Calendly, in Teams, whatever it is that you get at the show for after the show is a success rate to me. And I would be having sales prepared to go take those meetings. I mean, yeah, maybe a few have to be rescheduled, but you could sync up calendars. You could use a Calendly for the salespeople where ahead of time they load their calendars in and you say, hey, you would be working, with Jane, or you'd be working with Tom, and essentially here's their calendar. I'd love to book a meeting for you so we can get this solved. I think it's just a matter of doing it, really.
I'll answer way more clearly. And it's one word that you said, Calendly. Right? Like
Calendly,
all you have to do is pop open a Calendly link, be like, hey, all right, so when are you available? Pop, booked.
Go.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you're done.
Well, you got to sync up but you have to sync up the rep. I think that's the issue. Like the rep's not there. You have people at a show. You have some companies that are really large.
Like most reps have some kind of calendar link.
Sure. You just use that. Yeah. You just use that.
It's just don't overthink it, right? Like just have the reps calendar links, open up a calendar link and be like, when does it work for you? Done. Right?
Yeah.
At least that's what we did, and it worked really well. I don't know if you heard.
Yeah.
Oh, so another thing that we did is, I had Matt Kleinrock barking in my ear. How do I have someone there that is figuring out how to personalize follow-up, right? So we opened up a Slack channel where the sales team, after every conversation, they would just open up a voice note and send it to the Slack channel. And then that Slack channel had like, oh, I just talked to this person, blah, 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 brain dump. And, nowadays you can just take a voice note, transcribe it to ChatGPT, put it into your Fibonacci sequence, and you now have like personalized follow-up for people. So we created that as well. That was our post-event follow-up, but we're still in post-event follow-up right now, right? So like it all hasn't cooked out. Right now our sales team is just eating, right? Like they're fully booked for the next like 2 weeks.
It's fantastic. Having meetings. Yeah, that personalization piece is really important to me. I think it's a very small detail that a lot of people miss. They're more focused on the leads and loading them and, getting things organized to go chase afterwards, which I think is fine. And I think all that's great. But I think that level of personalization, remembering those conversations, right? Who did you talk to? Where did you talk to them? What did you talk about? There's just a lot of nuances that go in there. And when you're trying to, I say like trade shows and events are an expediter of relationships, right? They're a catalyst for relationships. So if you don't take that kind of like inertia energy, just dropping a little nugget in your email about something that you spoke about previously, I think is really powerful compared to dropping nothing and giving us like, hey, thanks for stopping by the booth. I want to set up right? Like it's, there's an extra level of personalization, which I think warms the touch per se.
Yeah. And don't forget about your Doug Foley brain, right? Like I very much was just like, I have a Fibonacci sequence in ChatGPT. I have voice notes that can be transcribed. For each voice note that I transcribe, I can say ChatGPT, personalize it based on the transcription on this voice note. And it just has that little bit, man. And then all the salesperson has to do is press send.
It's amazing. Oh, it's so easy, but it's not that easy, but it's easy. It's literally, you can have those voice notes, you can write a Fibonacci sequence, it can write the emails, you could take 5 minutes to go in, adjust the emails and send them. I mean, it really is.
Listen, we told our salespeople, no going to parties until you do this at the end of the day.
I think that's great. No, don't go to Andrew Smallwood's party until you do.
Literally, they weren't allowed to go to, they were not allowed to go to the Second Nature party until they did it.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense because you know where they're going.
Yeah.
Nice. So do you want to talk about like prepping for what's coming up, Pablo,
Yeah.
or do you want to talk a little bit about, all right, yeah, let's talk about what's coming next. So we've laid the groundwork. Everybody knows what you did, the success that Vendaroo had, what you do. So talk to me, and maybe you and I can workshop this a little bit just live for the last 10 minutes or so here.
Yeah.
But what is on the plate now? You mentioned $100,000 budget, 40 of it's been used. You have shows coming up. So walk me through what shows are coming up and where you sort of rank them. We can tier them. I think that's a great exercise. We can,
Yeah.
let's go through it.
Well, first of all, I would just like to express the fact that when you walk in with a $50,000 budget and you generate $2.5 million worth of revenue, your budget goes up. Right?
Yeah.
So,
So true.
so I literally was pulled aside until like when we were at our partner retreat there in Toronto, apart from the standing ovation,
Yeah.
I was also told, hey guys, Pablo, you definitely have a gimme from here on out. Right? Like if you say we need to do this, we're going to do
Yeah.
it.
We're going to do it. We're going.
So
I like
that's
it.
the other underappreciated piece of like really zoning in on one thing. And I'll tell you, man, I was terrified, right? Like I was scared. I was scared because I had never done this. I was scared that I was going to spend more money at this event that this company has ever spent at an event. And I was scared that I was going to spend 50 at this thing and be done with, my budget for events thereafter. But when you create a massive windfall, you get some space to do other things, right? Like you
And
get
I think that's a huge lesson, Pablo. In people say all the time, you hear successful people say you have to take risks, right? And I think it's just a little bit plain of a thing. You have to take risks, right? But when you break it down, you have to take calculated risks, right? You have to. So if you're going to go take a risk and you're going to go spend $50,000 at a show and a company's never done it before, get your shit together. I mean, like, don't just go and be like, oh, let's do this. It'll be cool. No, know who the customer is, know what they're seeking, understand engagement, right? Like you leveraged a playbook that we've spent a year building, that we've spent from conversations with hundreds of event marketers, experts, our own experience. You use the playbook literally in phases to gain ideas and gather the way you were going to go do this. So as much as it was risky and not, it really wasn't, right? I think you hedged it really hard, and that's probably a huge reason why you did a great job.
and I worked my ass off, right? Like I was just like,
Events are
this was
hard.
not going to fail, right? Like I think that there's something to be said there as well. So that being said, man, so I have more budget. I have other events coming up. I've whittled down my budget, but here's the deal: at NARPM Nationals, I've all because NARPM loved that they had this amazing AI activated space. Oh, just we knew that this thing was going to be home run when we were setting up for this. The trade show floor hadn't opened, and people wandering in were like, "Whoa, what is this?" And we were literally closing deals before the day the trade show opened. Anyways, massive success. We're going to have another room the same way, right? Like we're going to have a breakout room at the entrance of a trade show hall that we can do whatever we want with it. I feel like my first story was going to be, had to be this like, hey, AI is ready for prime time. You are ready to hire AI as an employee, not a software. I feel like the story needs to evolve, right? Like, I don't want to do the same exact thing, have these like stands to do demos, but I feel like I need to do another kind of activation.
So let me ask this as you're talking through this, because this is what we do really well with each other. Let me ask you this. Why would you change the message if you had such success, right? So, it's like, it's not broke, don't, if it's not broke, don't fix it type thing. So to me, like that would be my first thought. One show, huge success, it's hit. So how the room was set up, the graphics that were used, the story that was told, the game that was played, it all landed at a high rate. So I think my thought on adjustment would be not necessarily adjusting those things. It would more so be saying, okay, you're going to this show. Well, can we deploy? Because look, if you can go to the next show and deploy the same exact activation style thing that you just did, and you can go be 21 of 33 in meetings and get 51 meetings on the back end, I bet your CEO is going to sign the check right now. Sign it right now. You won't even have to worry about $100,000 of money or anything like that. But the question then becomes, in my eyes, can the show, this next show coming up, or one of the shows, can it support it? Who is there? What is the volume? Who are the people? And I think those are the questions you have to ask yourself, because if you come back and say, hey, there's this show in Dallas, it's a smaller show, it's more niche, it's more into single family homes versus apartments. I don't know. Like, I'm just giving an example. And I'd say, okay, well, talk to me about that. Like you would say, well, there's less doors to add. Because if we were doing property managers of apartments, we would be able to add more doors at volume. But a single, right? I might say, okay, well, how do we take exactly what you did and just scale it back a little bit? And I think those become the way my brain works, because at the end of the day, you're going to say, we're going to go deploy capital, time, energy, and we need to go drive a result. Because when you're driving the result you drove, everything's great, man. You know?
Yeah, yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, man. I appreciate it, right? Because to me, as like a creative guy, I always want to do the what's next thing as opposed to like
Yeah.
keep hammering what works.
Which makes sense.
I'll tell you this though. It's a very similar. So this one was like the owners of the company. This next one is going to be some owners of company and like a bunch of employees. So it's like less decision
Okay.
makers, right?
Okay. So are they property managers?
They are same exact
Okay. So
same
now, all
exact
right.
group.
Yeah, let's
Like
do
they'll
this.
come
Okay.
from the same companies, right?
Yeah.
But like one was the owners, now it's going to be the owners and their employees, right?
Okay, so now you're thinking you don't have at NARPM, you have the people ready to say, screw it and sign the check, right?
Yeah.
So that's why you rung that register the way that you rung that register.
Correct.
Now, what you have to understand walking this next show is you don't have that. You have some, maybe you'll have some. You have people that have to go to the person that can ring the register and ask. So in my eyes of walking through this, we have to help them build a case.
Yes.
We have to help them build a case study to go. You want them to leave, get your brand awareness, and then how, like, to me, I'm always thinking about, if I'm working with someone like this, I'd say, okay, what do I want my customer to do after? So for you at the last show, you want them to sign. You want to now, or you want them to book a meeting and come back to you to sign. At this next show, you want them to go present your case to their owner. That is what you want them to do. So you're reverse engineering. How do I make that happen? How do I engage them? How do I story tell to them? How do I give away, what do you do? But at the end of the day, if they don't go back and pitch this, also I'd be thinking, what's the value to the owner or to the person that can sign the checks? Because you need to arm them with that information. That's kind of how I would view your next show as an adjustment.
That makes a lot of sense. And thank you for that. You got my brain working, right? Because like,
yeah,
a couple of the things that I'm into right now is like, we've had this newsletter that's become really successful. I almost published a book before, like one of these, like, I think I showed you this thing, right? But like the ability to publish like a book like this, that's kind of like a manifesto of the thing that you're doing is something that I'm really into. I want to, at the next one, I want to have a book ready to publish that's painting the vision of like what the business would look like once you implement AI. And have that. And as you're saying that, I'm like, okay, cool. If the book works and it's like a 70-page book that you can read in like 2 days, then that's like giving the person the vision to take back to the owner is one part of it. The other thing that I'm thinking about is an owner is like, hell yeah, I want to replace my employees with AI. Employees are like, hell no, I don't want to get replaced by AI.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like the same message can't, like.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm leaning more towards the original message that I wanted to do, which is like end the firefight, right? Like what I really want to talk about is just like, dude, make your life easy, which makes me think that what I want to do is the thing that I've always wanted to do, which is create like a Hot Ones kind of like game show where they're eating like spicier and spicier chicken wings while asking property management questions and invite kind of like the influencers in the space to be a part of it and make it more of a spectacle around end the firefight where they walk away with the book.
I would do so poorly. I'd be like crying and drinking milk. I would do
not
poorly
surprised. No offense. Yeah.
I know. Not surprised. I'm fine with that. It doesn't bother me. Take no offense. I love this conversation because now I'm thinking as we walk through it, because again, this is such a good example of the stuff that we talk about. Like Pablo and I are working through it. Like this stuff matters. Can't just go to show like this show will be different. Just think about this. Deploying all this money and we're having this conversation because we know what the owner wants and what they're thinking and who signs the check versus the employee that is potentially working would be your customer. There might be a rub there on what this looks like, but you need, if you're going to go exhibit and sponsor and do whatever at this next show, you need to win over the employee to go to the owner and present something. If they don't do that, you will not ring the register at this show. And it's simply a brand awareness, long-term type play. And you will not have the results that you got last time, right? So that's what I love about this is you have to engineer it and say, what do we want them to do? So part of what I would be trying to connect the dot is, what is something that the owner wants? What is something that aligns with that the employee wants? Because you can't find something. It's like, oh, you're going to be replaced. We're not going to need employees. Because if I'm an employee and I work at a big company, I'm not bringing that to my boss. I'm like, fuck this. I'm not bringing it. But what's something that they're aligned on? What's something that maybe it's the fact that if they had this, they could manage more properties. Owner probably wants a single property manager to manage more properties. The property manager saying there's no way I could do this, impossible. But with this thing, yeah, I could probably do it. And maybe they make more money doing it. I don't know. Like that's just complete spitball. But I'm saying, what is that alignment? Because that's what you're seeking, right? You want them to leave, go back and be like, we have to hire vendor root. Like we have to add this in. It would make my life easy, your life easy. This is everything. This is the pitch. Because when you can get that, I think that's how you're going to win at this next show. I don't know what that looks like just yet, but then that would fold into the gamification. It would fold into the engagement, and it would fold into all the ideas that you do.
Yep. And somebody asked if I have like a brochure for Rosie the Robot in the chat. I just put it in there. I'll put it in the chat. They're a local company out of Denver that I got this from. But yeah, awesome, man, that's exactly it, right? Like I think I need to tell a story that is, this is going to make you superhuman, not this is going to replace your job.
Maybe we can talk about it more. We're getting down to the end here, but I think I love closing on that because people just saw us work through that. And it's like, that's how you don't waste dollars. That's how you go. You know, people are like, oh, I want to get results. Oh, I want to do this. Like, that's how you don't waste money, is by knowing what you're walking into, right? You knowing what it's like, I used this example the other day at a meeting, just joking. I said, like, if I'm going to walk into Thanksgiving and my aunt and my mom are at each other's throats, I want to know before I walk into Thanksgiving. I don't want to not know. You know what I mean? Like those are things. So that's like this, when you're going into a show, you got to know what you're walking into. So if you just go to this next show and deploy the same exact thing and you're going, you have to know the block there is going to be that you're not going to have people that sign and can close the deals on the spot. So the game has to be changed. Pablo, thanks for doing this, man. I'm super stoked with what you got going on with Vendor, man, and the success. And I think it's such a perfect role for you, from category stuff, evangelist, the event work that you do, your ability to like connect, tell story. I mean, I think it's perfect for you.
Thank you. I agree. I've never been more fulfilled by work. I would really regret not saying that this has literally been, you know, like this show, producing this show, listening to this show, and just following the path. As somebody who's like extremely creative and ADD and always wants to do it my own way, but just believing what I heard here and doing it is what led to this incredible success. Yeah. And I'm super, super grateful to be able to like share this here and be a testimony of like the value that you're putting out, man. And your mentorship and your friendship in my life has meant the world to me. So it's been really awesome to do this one.
Thanks again, man. Appreciate it. Great seeing your face. Thanks for everybody that showed up. As always, we got some really loyal people showing up every live show. It's awesome. Cody, Ish, whole team. Thank you. Adios. Talk to everybody later.